Hey folks, look what's getting revived. Some of you might recognize this case from years and years ago. This case and various boards in it have been owned by several different people that I know over the years. It's been tossed around. Sam and Suey 350A here on YouTube owned this at one point, at least for a little while. Back when it had its original board in it. He upgraded the board. I got that. Then I sold that motherboard, and this thing's been sitting in that closet over there doing absolutely nothing for years. And now I have a use for it. It's going to become a server again, like its former glory. So, it doesn't have a board in it. And that presented itself as a problem. It's also an ITX, a mini ITX based case. So, what am I doing with this? This is going to be a secondary server. I've had a secondary server running for a while that I didn't make a video about, but it really wasn't exciting enough to make a video about. This one is a little bit different, so I figure this one's actually worth, showing you guys. This is a $30 motherboard. This is a no-brainer, it looks like, for a server. UXW Bill, I was talking to him, and he made me aware that these exist, and I thought, that is perfect for a file server, because, it's just cheap, really cheap. It'd be perfect for what I need, what I've been needing to redo this server in this tiny case here, because I've been wanting to do this for a while, but could never really justify it. Now that I have to donate a computer, or at least let someone borrow it for a while, I need to keep a server running, so I literally needed to get this board now. It's an ECS motherboard. It's a VX900i. This uses a VIA CPU, which is rather unusual these days to see. It's a VIA single-core L2007 1.6 GHz chip. Apparently it's 64-bit, because this thing supports, like 8 gigs of RAM. Uses the VIA Nano CPU. VIA VX900 integrated graphics chipset, which is odd. I don't know how well that's supported in Linux, because that's what it's going to be running on this board. It works with Windows 7 just fine. Apparently it's endorsed by Norton, Cyberlink, and Musi, or Muzzy, or I think it's Musi. Something like that. Pro Industrial Grade Durathon, Durability Technology by ECS. So you can sort of compare that to the ultra durable thing that Gigabyte has going on. Really thick circuit boards, high temperature resistance, 1.5K marathon test. I don't know what that means. Solid capacitors, which is nice to see. What this is similar to the Atom, the Intel Atom motherboards for nettops you would see. This case was originally a Foxconn nettop, for those of you who haven't seen this before. I originally bought this. It had an Atom 330 integrated CPU in it on the board. That board is upgraded to a D510 based Atom motherboard, Foxconn again, and now it's being I don't know if this is a downgrade or an upgrade, probably a downgrade to a VIA board. For $30, I couldn't say no to this. So, there you go. That's bringing you up to speed on this particular computer. Other things about the board, it's got the ESD protection. Apparently, the VIA video is good enough for 1080p Blu-ray 2D video. Apparently, having your CPU on board is the best value. Maybe not. Because I've had BGA chip failure before, and it's not fun. And, of course, the solid caps. There's the board itself. It looks just like those integrated Atom deals you can get. It's mini ITX. It supports DDR3 1066, so the RAM is a little bit slow, but it's the two servers I was running before are DDR2 based, so this is a nice DDR3 based system. LVDS output, which is really cool. So you can plug an LCD directly into this. So something like this board would be really nice for a kiosk. Maybe even an ATM could run on a board like this. That LVDS connector thing I think is really cool. Uses SATA 3 gigabits per second. HD audio, gigabit LAN, which I really need, which I really care about. And you know, it's up to the standards. So enough of me just talking about the board endlessly. There's some more information if you want to look at it. Yeah. Let's take a look at the board. Stuff. There's a CD in there. Gotta hold on to that. There's the motherboard manual. Here's the board itself. It is absolutely tiny, just like the Atom boards were. I love these mini ITX systems. It's just like a little square. It's cute. I/O shield. Some really cheap SATA cables. Wow. I'll be using different SATA cables, I think, since it's a server. So, let's unwrap the board and take a look at it. Here's the board itself, out of its protective wrapping. There's the CPU with its little heatsink and fan. That's really tiny. That's really tiny. There's the chipset. That's the VIA CPU, by the way. There you go. Revision 1.0 of the VX 900. Two SATA ports down there. Looks like some USB headers. Audio over there. You get a battery. A few electrolytics down there, but mostly solid caps where stuff is important. Looks like you have a header for a serial port, which is nice to see. Header for a system fan. Wonder where that LVDS connector is that they mentioned. Probably have to look in the manual. Whatever, I'll look in the manual. Here's the I/O you get on the back of the board. Real PS2, HDMI, VGA, serial, some USB 2.0, gigabit Ethernet, and audio. Pretty simple, typical layout. You get 2 RAM slots, take DDR3 1066. I'm just going to put one stick in there because that's all I really need for a file server. It's going to be an FTP server. So SFTP server, actually. So this is what it'll be running on because it doesn't require much power to run. It works. It gets a little hot compared to the Atoms, according to UXW Bill, when I was talking to him about these. But you know, it's probably going to do fine in this case because there's a decent amount of ventilation, both from the power supply and from the side fan. So I'm going to install this board in there, and yeah, I'll get back to you. Alright, here's the inside of the machine. I got the board installed, have a stick installed. That's either a 4 gig or a 2 gig stick of RAM. I think that's a 2 gig stick. We'll find out when we turn it on, but either way, that should be plenty to run the server. Got a hard drive in the corner over there. That's a 500 gigabyte Western Digital Caviar Blue. It has a Linux installation already on it that I was using on another computer to run this server, so it should just be a matter of booting it up and making sure it detects everything. Seems to be pretty good. The power supply to this is not original. The original power supply, the voltage on the 3.3 started to steadily go up towards 3.6 at one point. So I had to replace that power supply in a hurry. So I have an A-open power supply in here that's made by the same manufacturer, actually. That Sansui 350A here on YouTube gave me at one point years ago. Now it's finally getting used. And yeah, I have the drive cage and all this front panel stuff removed right now. Nothing is going to end up going there. I don't have a card reader or the original slot cover to put back there. In fact, here's the drive cage. I have a DVD drive, and that's really about it. So that's what's going to go in there. Yeah. It's funny. The back of the board mentions the LVDS connector. My particular board doesn't seem to have it. I thought it did based on the back of the box, but it does not. Apparently that's an option you can get on some of these boards. You can get an LVDS connector on board and use it like a kiosk. And I think that's a really cool idea. That's some cool stuff. I'd like to play around with that if I had the chance. But it does say it's in the manual, and it says it's optional. So I'm going to go with my particular board not having it, but it does seem to have everything else. One nice thing about this case is, you know how for some motherboards, especially the cheaper ones like this that don't have the front panel stuff labeled? Luckily, this case came with a board pre-installed years back in 2009, 2010. So it just has a front panel connector here that you just plug straight in. And it's all in one piece, and it fits in this board perfectly. Bam, done. No fuss, no muss. There you go. Front panel stuff connected. I like it when stuff is that easy. I really do. All right, I have the drive cage and everything in there now. Quite a claustrophobic setup. This SATA cable coming off of the SATA converter for the power supply just barely reaches over there. So that's a pretty tight fit right there. It's a SATA DVD drive since this board only has SATA on it. Everything is kind of crammed in back there. Now I think it's time to put the cover back on and give this thing a smoke test. Just in case you guys are wondering when this computer was from, I bought it in, I believe, early 2010, so it was manufactured in 2009 by, I forget what that stands for, but HH is something to do with Foxconn. So, there you have it. That's your date code right there. And it's all put together. Front panel's really flimsy and doesn't stay together properly, but you know what? It works. It's a nice compact little computer. Takes what I think is a TFX form factor power supply. Has one slot for, in this case, PCI. And you know, there's the back. Never thought I'd see HDMI coming out of this case in my lifetime. But nonetheless, there it is. Let's bring it over to this setup over here and give it a smoke test. Alright folks, sorry if this lighting is really bad, but got a keyboard here with a built-in trackball. Got the new VIA board in there. Let's turn it on and give it a smoke test. 3, 2, 1. Smoke test! She lives. How do I get into the BIOS here? Is it delete? Yep. Looks like it's your standard American Megatrends BIOS, so that's pretty nice. Typical text BIOS. Look how simple that is. Hard disk CD-ROM. Yeah, there's the Western Digital drive in there. 500 gig. Hitachi LG DVD drive. Yeah, there you go. Advanced setup. Quick power on self-test. API-C mode. Numlock. Should probably boot from the CD-DVD first. And hard drive last. Removable device. Well, actually, if I put a card reader in there. Yep. Whatever that means. Alright. Wow, the built-in memory. You can, huh. Interesting. Onboard audio, onboard LAN, legacy support. Looks like your typical type of setup. Power LED type, dual color LED. It's a single color, I know that, so I'm going to leave it like that. Power on after power fail. You want power on since it's a server. Alright. Init first, onboard. Alright, that CPU's running at 40 degrees C, it looks like. I'm guessing that's the general idle temperature. Shutdown temperature, I think, should be around maybe 75. Warning temperature should be 65. That way it can shut itself off if it experiences failure or gets too hot. Smart fan on as normal. Works for me. Alright, looks like there's not a whole lot to control in here. There's your specs on the VIA processor. It's a VIA Nano L2007, 1.6 gigahertz, front side bus speed's 800 megahertz, which is why it only takes the 1066 DDR3. It's probably originally spec'd out for DDR2, but they just stuck a DDR3 chip in there. Has a meg of L2 cache for one core, so that works for me. Alright, let's see if this thing boots. The hard drive light is on the side here by the power and reset button, so let's see what it does. The hard drive light is pretty dim. It sees Linux. This is good. Let's see if it boots it. Yep, it's booting. Nice. This is the first time I've used a VIA CPU ever, by the way. So this is a completely new experience to me. Wow. All right. Let's see if it'll load the a graphical interface. Indeed it does. Nice. So this is $30 for a fully functional system. That's really cool. I like it. Very, very nice. Let's do an LSPCI on the system. Lots of VIA stuff in here. Oh, wow. Look at all that. Yeah, I've never used a VIA CPU before, so I doubt I'm going to really stress it or test it too much, but it seems to work great. So this is going to sit somewhere and just be a file server, not do much else. It looks like it's more than enough to do that. So let me log out, get back to text interface, and it'll basically sit like this without a monitor or keyboard plugged in. So yeah. Not a whole lot to show you software-wise because literally this thing just hosts files and stays there as something separate from my personal file server. I use this for, like, let's say I need to relay a very large video to somebody. That's basically an example of what this would be used for. Video projects, you know, whatever else. It's perfect for that. So that's why I keep a secondary server around. So $30 well spent, I think. We'll see how it pans out in the long run, but right now, I'm liking what I got here. This is definitely a no-brainer for $30. I took this from an Intel Core 2 Duo type setup to this, and Linux just handled it no problem. So that's awesome. Good stuff. Okay, I got the BIOS screen to freeze, and I can confirm that that was a 2 gig stick of RAM. So I'm running 64-bit Debian 7 with or Debian 8, whichever is the newest. With 2 gigs of RAM, so that works for me. It'll run. I don't really care. File servers I run generally don't use a whole lot of RAM to begin with, so this should be completely fine. Cool stuff. So that's a $30 motherboard put into an old derpy case, and literally my affectionate name for this was the Derptop back in those days. So yeah, I tore the Intel Atom sticker off of it because this is now a VIA Nano L2007 based system. So I'm going to leave this sitting down in the basement next to my other file server and just let it run. Cool stuff, and it's a smaller footprint than what used to be the server, which is this thing. So, excellent stuff. I like this board. For the price, I really like it. So, not the most exciting video in the world, but nonetheless, it's something different. So, there you have it, folks. This thing's going to just sit around and serve files. Hope you enjoyed the video, and have a good one, everybody. Ciao.